morning, class. Today we are going to be talking about sustainability and climate change. Climate change is a very prominent issue for all of us in this day and age, and we need to be aware of the rising sea levels One of the main contributors to climate change is the fashion industry.
What are you talking about, miss?
Don't you know that fast fashion is bad for the environment? It contributes to 10% of all CO2 emissions. Instead of buying fast fashion, you can buy second-hand. It's when you buy used clothes that have been given to the store.
Ew, used clothes? That's kind of gross. Fast fashion can't be that bad.
Well, actually, beyond being bad for the climate, it has a huge negative impact for our fellow human beings that are currently working under immensely insufferable working conditions. Rich companies and countries, usually ex-colonial powers, have had better prerequisites for stable economic growth and decent working conditions. Therefore, it is extremely significant to support countries who have been affected by the colonial footprint by not contributing to the fashion industry.
Additionally, the environment surrounding the factories are suffering greatly. Wastewaters from the factories are usually not cleaned before being let out into the rivers, polluting the waters with lead, arsenic and mercury. Actually, fabric production contributes towards 20% of the world's water pollution by, among other things, emitting 200,000 tons of dyes annually.
But can't they just work somewhere else? Why do they work in these factories? And if we stop buying fast fashion, they won't have a job. How will they survive?
People living under worse conditions, such as poverty and starvation, are forced to take the few jobs opportunities on offer. And this is what companies choose to exploit to their advantage by forcing workers to work overtime, provide poor wages, and work in unsafe working environments. How are workers who receive an average of $0.3 per hour able to support their families?
They can't. Also, studies have shown that when big foreign corporations remove their factories from these communities, the community's own economy thrives. Society cannot develop when children are forced to give up their education to support their families.
Also, unhealthy working environments have led to workers suffering from poisonings, nausea, cancer, miscarriages, and children born with birth defects.
Other consequences of the fashion industry is the huge consumption of water. Some fabrics require up to 200 tons of water in production, not to mention the water needed in order to produce, for instance, cotton. 1 kilo of cotton requires 10,000 litres of water. The water used in industries is the same water that these societies use for drinking.
But fast fashion is so cheap.
Second hand is cheap as well.
But hey class, let's discuss this and view this issue from both sides. Second-hand is relatively cheap now, but what happens if everyone starts to buy second-hand and demand suddenly goes up? According to the economic theory of supply and demand, the price for thrifted clothes will go up. Then what happens to those that rely on buying clothes for cheap from second-hand stores, like poor and homeless people?
Maybe at first it will be more expensive, but as business owners notice a growing demand for second-hand clothes, more stores will open up and competition will bring the prices down again. Right now, fabrics have become a disposable product. Only 15% are recycled, and the fibers can take up to 200 years to decompose, and are usually stuck in landfills. If second-hand gets popularized, more people will give their clothes to these stores instead of throwing them away. The production of clothes to be thrown away on landfills will also decrease.
So, in conclusion, second-hand is a sustainable option to fast fashion because it doesn't harm the environment or exploit workers in the same way that fast fashion does. Second-hand is cheap, sustainable, and beneficial for society, and therefore we should choose to buy second-hand instead of buying new. We've learned a lot today, class. What Snobby Kid? What do you think about all that we've learned today?
After this very intense discussion, I think I might go and buy a new pair of jeans at the second-hand store.